All right, I got 6 o'clock. Let's get going. All right, 6 o'clock. I call this meeting of the Saginaw City Council to order. Please rise. I pledge allegiance. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. Item number 2 is the invocation, and for that, our friend, Reverend Michael Orr. Welcome, sir.
Let's pray together. Righteous Father in heaven, we're so thankful for this day, for giving us life, for caring for and taking care of the citizens in Saginaw and all the areas surrounding it. We pray first of all a blessing on all of those here. You would be with them in their health and family. Be with those struggling and suffering from illness in our community. And please help us to be able to find an end to this COVID crisis soon. And for those who have lost loved ones and are facing a difficult holiday, we pray your greatest comfort and peace upon them, Father. We thank you for the great economic developments that have been happening here in this community, for those who have labored so hard to make sure that our community is prosperous and we have new businesses and new job opportunities for everyone here. We pray that you would be able to help us to curb the difficulties that families face financially, that we would be able to have plenty for the things that we need, be with the needy and hurting among us, and please provide for them and help them to find the help that they need. We pray for schools as they get closer to holidays and other things, that you would be with our children and teachers, especially as they prepare to take tests and midterm tests and other things, and just give them the wisdom and understanding they need to just be able to excel and to do well in all that they do. We pray for those first responders and others who are in constant danger from various elements, and we pray a blessing and peace upon them and safety for them. Father, be with us as a community. Help us to continue to help one another and encourage one another, to be grateful and thankful, truly thankful for all that you've done for us and all you continue to do to bless this great community, this great city. We pray a blessing on all of its leaders and those who make decisions. May you give all of our council members and all of those who are in charge of key positions here in this community the wisdom and the guidance and the understanding that they need to make the very best choices for our city. Please bless their families and bless them and watch over their health as well. We ask you all these things in your holy and righteous Son's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Reverend. Item number 3 is audience participation. That's covered on the screen. If there's an item listed on the agenda you wish to speak, please see the city secretary. She can sign you up. Or if there's a public hearing, I will call you up to speak at the appropriate time. Also, I'd like to welcome all those folks watching us online. Should I say, I hope there's people watching online, and if so, give us some feedback how the audio and visual quality is. And if you're watching online and you have any questions, please email the city manager or myself, and we will answer your questions. All right, moving forward. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. A is action regarding minutes of November 2nd. B is action regarding cancellation of December 21st meeting. C is action regarding Capital Improvements Advisory Committee recommendation regarding land use assumption and impact fees. D is action regarding authorization of individual project order with Kimley Horn Associates for Thompson Drive sidewalks. Any questions on the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, ma'am. Any second? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Let the record reflect we do have a quorum this evening. Full house. Thanks for coming out, everyone. Item number 5. Moving forward, item number 5 is presentation of the Economic Development Award of Merit from the Texas Economic Development Council. I guess that's Gabe. You want to give a little example of what this is?
Mayor, it's always nice to be recognized. This award is due to Keith Reinhardt's efforts. So we have a relatively new economic development department in the life of our city. So I believe we created a standalone economic development department of one in around 2019, so about after my first year. Some of the good things that have come out of that have included our building improvement grant program, which off the top of my head, we've probably approved 23 building improvement grants. We did a year of quarterly local business forums. Of course, we had a year off with COVID, unfortunately, but that recently resumed. Keith has been out and about talking with brokers and working on bringing some of the things that residents desire. So we've got a lot to be thankful for. We've got a great year looking ahead. A lot of these developments that, in fact, we'll discuss later, take time, take years to put in motion. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Keith.
You want to say anything?
No comment.
Well, I want to say something. This is really impressive. We have not gotten this before because we didn't have much of an economic development department. We've been working on economic development for years, but not very well. We've got some momentum the last couple of years, and I look forward to that continuing. And this is just a small evidence of the work we've done and the work yet to be done. So it takes time, but it's rolling. We're getting some momentum, and I'm very, very thrilled. And a lot of it's due to Keith. So, man, thanks, buddy. Let's do a photo op. All right, item number 6. At 6:08, we're in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding a request to amend the portion of the planned development for Belt Mill approved by the City Council on April 20th, 2021, revising the development standards and development plan for tracts 2 and 3. For that, Director of Public Works, Rick Trice.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. You'll recall back in April 2021, we approved the Belt Mill PD. Since that time, we've had interest in the northwest corner of Belt Mill, which is the old Track 2 and Track 3 from the original PD plan. What this amendment does is to revise the development standards within Track 2 and Track 3A, if you refer to your development plan to see that. The original PD for Track 2 had townhomes. What this amendment does is allow the developer at his option to either go with the original PD plan, which would be townhomes in the far northwest corner, or in Track 3A to come back with a multifamily type product, or he can go with a new product, which is the single family for rent type of product, which you can see the layout there. So I'm going to stop there and introduce Doug Powell, who I believe has a PowerPoint presentation that he'll run through with you and be able to answer any questions that you've got.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Rick said, we've been here a couple times on this project and wanted to show you a little bit of the history, though I think most of you probably already know this. There you go. And so I think you're all aware of the site and location. This was the original concept plan. It was a mixed-use development, had single-family, multifamily, townhouses, and commercial, roads and infrastructure to support that. This was a development plan that was approved earlier this year. And as Rick pointed out, in that northwest corner, that purple area, it was townhouses, okay? And so what we're asking for tonight is to add an option that in place of those townhouses and 11 acres of the multifamily, that we could do single family for rent. What that does is the density goes down. What this table shows is the zoning and the first development plan. The density really didn't change, but you can see that with this new plan, the density goes down. The number of multifamily is 261, a decrease. It also will decrease the intensity. So instead of 3-story buildings, you'll have single-story buildings. At the same time, we're still maintaining all the development standards that we had. The railroad buffer, for example, that's still going to be there. One of the things that is a little bit different, and this is the plan that shows the units in that lake location, is we did have in that townhouse area a park. But actually, within this development, there is going to be more open space and activities than that park was going to be. And so we think it's a trade-off. That shows you the trails and the open space areas, the pool area. This is a picture of it. It's going to be nicely amenitized. Again, you also have the buffer and trail along the railroad track. And so what's happened, we've been doing some development. I think the developer, Don Allen, has done exactly what he said he's going to do. We're out there constructing. These were just taken today. You can kind of see right there in the foreground, that's going to be the pond that they're digging out. And so we're very excited, this going forward. And again, this is one of the things that we haven't shown staff yet, but we're going to put a nice entry sign there at the Belt Mill Parkway where it comes out on Bailey Boswell, and we think it'll be a signature piece for the development. And we're also working on the commercial. And so one of the PD standards was one of the multifamily had to be age restricted, and the folks that are doing Mariposa are also working on a plan to do that here. So again, what we're doing is tweaking the plan a little bit because of the market, but we think that we're right in line with what we always said we were going to do. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The folks from JPI and Taylor Morrison, who are actually going to build these structures, are here if you have any questions about the specific units.
And I might add, Mayor, just to wrap my part up, is the P&Z met last week and unanimously recommended approval to City Council.
All right, thank you, Rick. Council questions? Mary?
I know that cities don't have the opportunity to require certain building materials, but I think in a planned development we can. So will these be masonry?
They'll have the same masonry requirements that, if you remember the PD, because of the new state law, doesn't have building materials, but that's in the development agreement, and we've agreed to meet those same standards with these units.
Okay, thank you.
Going down the road. Cindy?
I'm trying to understand the drawing. I zoomed in on 2 and 3A. Are those houses like 3 deep?
They are houses. They're single-story units, and they are kind of stacked, yes.
So how is the person in the middle supposed to access their home?
I mean,
They walk in like they would to an apartment or something?
yeah, I mean, there will be sidewalks that, yes, you can walk from the street back to there.
And let's say on track 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 7, 8 houses in, right before you get to the dotted line with between 2 and 3A. If that place catches on fire, how's our fire department supposed to get in there?
Well, this does meet all the fire codes, and what it is really it's 2 units on the street, and then there's 2 units kind of behind, and so it's at kind of a 4-plex arrangement. But this project will meet all the town's fire code, the fire lanes and fire access, hose lays. It will meet all those standards.
It looks like it has fences there. I mean, you guys going to be able to get in there and safely? And we're again, I'm not happy with minimum safety standards for you guys. You deserve much better than that.
Sure. They, as he indicated, they'll have to meet the fire code. Those do pose some challenges with reach. but I think there's conversations about them possibly being fire sprinklered. If they're not, they'll have to meet the reach requirements in the fire code. It would be no different if it was an apartment complex or any other facility, so.
Okay, so we just talked about a new booster station for water. Is all that going to be able to, are we going to be able to handle that water load?
Yes, the booster station, power flow and pressure will serve all of up to 3 stories.
It's,
These are 1-story structures.
it just doesn't, yeah.
The story structure, the power pressure.
I still don't like it. It just looks like it's just a lot of work. Sorry. I know you guys work hard on the design, but, you know, I love our first responders, and I want to make sure that this
Well-
is absolutely way above minimum standards, safety standards for these guys.
And this product has been built, this is not the first time, and so.
So this is Saginaw. I don't care about anybody else.
Well, my point was that it has been built and has been tested by the International Fire Code, and it's been built to those standards. And so we are not going to do anything less here in Saginaw.
I want to see you do more.
Well, the intensity of this will be a lot less than a 3-story apartment building.
I understand that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Gabe?
I might add, the likelihood is these units are sprinklered. We've talked about similar products in the past. There are no concerns from staff about safety. If you think of the inverse, which is what could be, we could have townhomes. So if you recall, a townhome is a multi-unit building with a shared wall. So if one were to, ponder the safety of individual units, there's really no comparison. These units would be far safer, and they'll be built to a standard that meets the approval of our fire chief and our fire marshal. There's no safety concerns, which the fire chief can attest to.
But if you recall, every municipal building in the city, their fire suppression systems failed because the pipes burst, because we had no electricity. I hate to see that happen to, hundreds of households here. We're already going to deal with that disaster over here at this, off of McElroy and Woodcrest.
Cindy, it's not a disaster. Let's stick to this subject, please.
And I'm entitled to my opinion, and I just fear for the same thing here.
Chief Spears, do you have any fears about this, concerns about this proposed development? Because staff, like I mentioned, certainly does not.
No, like I say, it's early in there, so there's a lot of discussions that'll go on towards the fire code, but I'll just make the blanket statement. We do not compromise on the fire code, not one little bit. There's trade-offs that the fire codes allows. If they do one thing, there's some concessions maybe in another area. One of the primary things, if they fire sprinkler the building, there's some considerations in our authority to do so if we want to do those, but we do zero compromise on the fire code. That's probably true of the building codes as well. So it will meet the fire code and meet a minimum safety standard that's accepted across the country.
And how close are these units to each other?
They have a 10-foot separation. So I think one thing that's intimidating about the plan.
I'm sorry, will you
Daniel Dewey
will you
with
introduce
JBI.
yourself real quick?
Yeah,
Okay.
Daniel Dewey with
Sorry.
JBI Partners.
Thank you.
So we're the civil engineer on these projects, and I think one thing that's hard to envision is you're basically taking an apartment complex where each unit is stacked together in common wall, and you're just separating it by 10 feet. And you get 4 walls and a backyard, and so it's a little bit of a different style of product. So when you park in the parking lot and walk to your unit, it's no different than walking into a 3-story unit that has 25 units in it. So each unit's sprinkled, and then also the likelihood of 20 units catching on fire at one time is highly unlikely. Whereas an apartment building, if one of the buildings catches on fire, 20 plus units are affected. So it's a little bit different because the density is so much less. Now, you do have, to have a lot of fire hydrants and the fire lane goes around, but the actual distance to each unit is no different than being on the first floor of an apartment. It's kind of the way to look at it. It looks intimidating because we have a lot of little squares. But if you put all the squares together, it would be no different than it would actually be quite a bit less dense than an apartment building. So the way I kind of look at it is like, it's kind of like a resort style living, or, you know, little cabins or something. You know, they're all, and there's, I think there was some elevations provided as well, so. But it's definitely a different style of living, and it's not necessarily for everyone, so.
So are you going to have a different type of material on the outside of these houses because they are so close together? I mean, I know they're not touching, but they are close together.
Yeah, they're close together, and it's like no different than the single-family building separation. If you had 40-foot lots or 50-foot lots with 5-foot side yards, that's essentially what it's like. So, I mean, it's gonna be a house, you know. So you get the benefit of not having anyone banging above you or banging to the side of you, but you're not having to rent an apartment.
Again, safety's my thing here. And are these duplexes?
The blue squares are duplexes, so it's one bedroom units are duplex units, and the 2-bedroom units are single standalone units.
You made the comment of the houses were 10 feet apart. Is that eve to eve or wall to wall?
I believe that is eve to eve. I mean, it would be no different than the single family 50-foot lot. You know, so I think it's eve to eve.
Okay. So if that's eve to eve, then your wall to wall is going to be a little bigger than that then.
Is that little is the parking for all them, is that the little B squares on the edge there?
I believe so. Well, I mean, basically, the whole thing is like a couple of loops of fire
Right.
lane.
Right.
And then we have covered parking spots, parking garages, and then open spots.
So it's not going to get in the way of the fire truck or anything? That's
No,
what I
it's
was wondering.
like your typical fire lane,
Okay.
like you would see in an apartment building.
Okay. Because it looks like that little road that goes that way is smaller. It might not be, but
Oh, yeah.
I had a question. You had mentioned a park in the middle of, I guess, your first go-around of it, and then maybe I misunderstood you, that evidently that was going away, and you're putting smaller parks and sidewalks or walking paths.
The whole complex has the common area, so we have like a fitness building and a pool, and then it's connected with trails. So the idea is like any of the units, you're going to get and be able to walk to everything. So it's all kind of interconnected. So I believe the original zoning had the townhomes, the multifamily, and a park.
And a park, that's right.
And so that park, you know, instead of having that park as part of that tract, this is like a closed, like multifamily, you know.
So what we're giving
neighborhood.
up is the park to get this?
I wouldn't say you're giving up. This area that would be like the neighborhood park, it's amenitized for this area. So amenities are provided for the residents of this area. The single-family part is separate, and so like each multifamily tract within the development will have their own pool, their own everything. So
When you say single-family park, I'm just assuming that's a yard.
now each unit does have a fenced-in backyard.
Okay.
And so that's another aspect of these that multifamily, you know, you have a little, you know, if you want to rent in the multifamily part, you're going to get a patio. And in this area, you're going to get a fenced-in backyard.
Okay, so do you have a picture, and can tell me how many square feet or how big the original park was versus now how you're spreading it out amongst the area? I mean, that's what I'm trying to grapple at.
was the original park, was that for everybody or was it just for that little addition?
The original plan has parkland in each pod, so it really hasn't changed other than the proposed product has kind of changed, if that makes sense. Is that fair? Yeah. There's just, with this proposed product, there's far fewer units it's less dense.
Yeah, but they had a picture there, and he brought up, they said, the original one had a park, and they said, okay, now what we're doing is we're doing trails, and things like that. So I'm just trying to compare,
Yeah.
bring it back. So,
And so one of the benefits,
There was a slide that had that up there. Can we go back a couple of slides?
Oh, the clicker. Let's see.
no.
Am I going the wrong way? I went the wrong way. Back one more. So within the townhome development, there was a small park, is what we're seeing. Okay. So, yeah, no different than, say, the multifamily park that we're building our section in. That multifamily, all the amenities would be private amenities to the people that live in that multifamily project. So the townhome area would have its own little private park maintained by its HOA. So in reality, our development has its own amenities within the whole development. We have the pool, the fitness area, and the trails. All the common area and the walking path, I mean, we didn't take up area calculation for that.
So was it a common park, or wasn't it at the beginning?
there's been no change. Yeah.
Been no change?
Hi, I apologize. I'm Don Allen. I'm with Lackland Holdings and Belt Mills Saginaw LLC. And yes, you were right. To go back to the other slide, originally when we had 12 and a half acres of potential three-story multifamily and the 7.5 acres of townhomes, we did have a public park in there. And with the thought that the townhomes would not be gated and the public park would be accessible. But with this use, it being, to really make it work, and one of the things that people expect out of this is to have a private gated community. So a public park within the gates did not work. So that's the reason. When Taylor Morrison approached us with this, we looked at what we had with the townhouse and the three-story multifamily zoning. I think between the two of them, we had 361 potential units, and I think now we're looking at 188 units. So we basically lowered the density by 173 units that could be built here. So we've seen this product around multiple places around the Metroplex. It's fairly new to the market. It's wildly successful. It commands the same square footage, commands a higher rent here than it would in a traditional three-story multifamily complex. Again, you get people that want a backyard. Maybe they want a garage to park their car in, but they want a little bit of a backyard. They got a dog and they want to let him out in the backyard, that type of thing. Or they want to have a little backyard to do a little garden or whatever. So it is a different concept, but it's a really cool looking community at the end of the day. It doesn't, obviously doesn't feel the same as a single family neighborhood, but it doesn't feel like an apartment complex either. It's a pretty cool feel, and it's something. You have something similar. I believe you've approved here already in town, just west on McElroy. Except I believe those are two-story units, and these are all pure single-story units. So I think at the end of the day, this is going to give you a different variety. Whether it's a young buyer with a pet or somebody who wants a little more room, it doesn't want. They don't want walls. They don't want to hear their neighbor. They don't want to hear somebody stomping on the roof at 3 a.m. That type of thing. And so it makes a great community. There's a certain type of renters that they still want to rent, and renting a house these days is, pretty hard to find because houses are hard to come by these days as far as new homes with the market and even existing homes. They get bought up so quickly. So people generally aren't renting their houses out now unless you're just an investor in the rental business. But most people, if they want to get rid of the house, they don't have to rent it. They just put it on the market and sell it right now. So there's a real demand for this, and it will create a really cool community. I think you'll really like, and it'll be a nice contrast to the multifamily tracts that are adjacent to it. And again, it meets all fire code There's no compromises there. And like the setbacks, again, those are the same as like if you're in a single-family neighborhood and you look at the houses next to each other, those are typically 10 feet apart also. So it's the same setback within each apartment unit as opposed to setbacks for single-family houses. So, so our thought was in bringing this to you and in talking to Taylor Morrison is that, yes, we knew that the park thing wouldn't work, but as a compromise, but again, to have a reduced density, have a different kind of product in your town. So you have 2 apartment complexes, and then this build-to-rent product that again is they want to be competing with each other. They're generally different renters, and so we're actually really excited about what it'll bring to our community. We think it'll be a great addition, and we were pretty picky about who we're trying to sell to be sure that we don't compromise something that damages our value and the rest of our property. So we vetted this thing pretty strongly ahead of time. So I'm here to answer any questions that y'all have. I'm actually, we're the seller, we're not the developer, but.
Let me.
Yes, sir.
So if I understand correctly, we're going from an open community to a gated community.
Yes, sir.
That is a change.
Well, for the townhouse part, the multifamily part, I think for any of those,
and within that gated community, now that's where originally the public park was supposed to be.
That is correct, the half-acre public park. We do have a 1-acre public park in the single-family plans that are being processed through the city now.
So
we're
one
committed to
other
developing that one also. And we'll still have the amenities around the pond and stuff at the entrance.
There's one other item too. There's would still be dedicated open space between the westernmost commercial track and the first multifamily track.
Yes.
But each, I guess, I think I'm hearing the concern. Each of the residential pods have their own community-specific amenities.
Right. When these multifamily guys come in, again, they don't rely on public parks. They build, it's kind of a competition. Who has the coolest pool? Who has the neat little cookout pavilion and all the amenities? That they're, chasing renters, and the more desirable they make their community, the more renters they get, and the higher rents they can command. So it's kind of an arms race as far as who's got the biggest, coolest amenity type stuff. So it is a different concept, but we think overall it'll be better for our community, and we think it'll be better for the city too. That's our opinion.
What's the square footage on these units?
I'm sorry?
What's the square footage on these units?
Nikki, do you have a question?
No, I'm just rolling this over in my head, trying to figure out whether it's right for the city, because we are giving up public park space, and I still ain't figured out how much public park space we're giving up, and I know that's very important for the livelihood of the city, is to have good public park space. I mean, yeah,
understand.
You're building a community, but it's an enclosed community, and the only people who gets utilization of that is that community, not the rest of the.
I do understand. I do understand, but what we have within this community in particular is all the multifamily tracts having their own amenities. They're not going to be using the public parks, say across the street in the single family.
What makes you say that?
Because they'll have to walk to that when they'll have commensurate parks and open space and amenities within their own community. I won't say they won't use it. I'm saying it will lessen the use, if that makes sense. I mean, if you just want to go out and walk around and walk your dog for an hour,
I guarantee they'll be taking their dogs to the dog park, and they'll be going over here to the bigger park.
No, I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying, though, that when they have their own amenities, if they're going to use their own amenities more often and go to the park less often is all I'm saying. If they want to go to the park, they're still going to go to a park. I don't disagree. So.
Council, other questions?
How many pools are you putting in this development? Just a single pool?
For this
entire development?
No, for this community. This one community right here. Each of the multifamily tracts will have their own pools.
So, again, how many pools are you putting in this entire development?
I don't know for sure yet what the in the middle multifamily tract is yet, they'll have at least one, but they might have more than one. But there'll be at least one pool in every multifamily tract. But the one we're talking with in the middle, I don't know that they might have two, but I know they have one. So at least each of the multifamily tracts will have
So
their
how many
own
multifamily
pool
tracts
and
do you have?
amenities, outdoor cooking areas, open spaces, things like that.
So you have 2, 3 multifamily tracts?
Yes,
So you're looking at least 3 pools?
yes.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, and I'm saying there might be more, but I can promise you there'll be 3. That I know for sure.
All right, so you said gated. There'll be one gate or there'll be 2 gates? I see 2 entrances, one just an exit?
Both entrances would be gated.
Okay.
Yes.
Are both entrance and exit?
Um,
Or is it just one?
There'll be entrance and exits for fire vehicles, certainly. I don't
sure.
know if the second entrance is an exit only, or is it?
Yeah, typically, it's driven to where the main entry that's divided, all the residents enter there, and then can go like left or right. And then the second point is an exit only.
Okay, that's what I was
So
thinking.
kind of like your typical, can somebody sneak in the gate? Yeah, they can sneak in the gate, but the traffic's all going to be driven to the main entry.
Okay, thank you.
And then one thing we do have, we do provide a dog park in our northernmost corner. There's a little green space there. One other challenge of the site is we do have a gas well road that cuts on the northern side of the site. So there's access to a gas well that's to the north there. So we had to offset that. And then just back there, we provided a small dog park for our residents. So you get your backyard and you also have a dog park. So it's going to be an active community that has some bells and whistles to it for sure, and the finish out of the units is very nice.
So 2 and 3A are going to be a single gated community. They're kind of joined together.
Yes. Because of the way it's zoned currently, we have them described separately, but when they develop this, it'll be a single contiguous community. Those 2 tracks are now be merged into one as far as the actual development. I'm sorry.
How many gated communities do we have in Saginaw right now? Do we know?
I know, Mariposa, of course, is gated.
That's only one.
Well, right, that's open and has COs, yes, just one. The Grand, which is also in Belt Mill, will be gated, but it's a multifamily, of course, complex. And then UCD, which is on the corner of 156 in Beatty Boswell, it will be gated also, so into the multifamily portion of it. So I don't believe I left any out.
It's just the trend in the way multifamilies are being developed. The apartment complexes are being developed this way in build or rent or anything like that. People like the security. I mean, even if, somebody can drive through the gate or sneak through, but there is some security there, and it's certainly an illusion of security that renters kind of expect. So again, it's one of those things that if you build the same thing not gated and then build one gated right next to it, the one that's gated will be able to command higher rents and have higher occupation just because it's more desirable to renters.
So, Gabe, we have no problem with the losing that. I don't even know how big this park space is. We'll be losing from a city standpoint.
So the question is the trade-off is density, right?
Right.
There's less density. It's you can make the case it's a higher quality product.
Right. That's what I'm sitting here trying to.
Yeah, I mean the amenity for a non-resident, I would say, would be the trail system, which is throughout citywide. The main kind of recreational amenity would be the entryway feature, the water, the commercial area. So, just give you an example. There's a small pocket park in Highland Station. Do you remember the name? Talking half acre. We have our Parks Board chair. He should know. Do we get non-resident traffic to that pocket park? I would guess not. I would guess in this development, although there's certainly people going to be using it, it's not a major driver.
Sagewood Park.
Is there trails going to be tied into the rest of our trails? So it could be a continuous trail? Is that going to be done?
So the plan development has a loop trail system throughout. I think long-term, thinking out loud, I think we would maybe have an opportunity to go down Bailey Boswell, in theory, with future improvements.
We just had a briefing last night, actually, with the park board to talk about the park master plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan, and that one of the I guess sheets or plates in that plan will be is a trail system, and that part of that will be utilization of sidewalks down Bailey Boswell. Really, though, connection to areas north. I mean, you know, we get into Fort Worth pretty quick. They have a Northwest Regional Park. So really that connection would more likely occur up by 156 and Bailey Boswell, but I see no reason why. I mean, there will be connectivity pedestrian-wise into Belt Mill from Bailey Boswell. And
So it's not part of the plan right now?
there is, until this plan is adopted, the park master plan, there really isn't a formal trail system per se.
Because I moved here when I had my house built 20-some years ago, and there was supposed to be one little trails behind my house because it stops on the other side of the where now the fire department is, and it starts over there. 20-some years later, they still haven't put it in. So if it's not on the plan, it ain't part of this, then I'm assuming I'll be dead and gone before it gets put in. So.
Well, the intention in our park system is kind of fragmented, the trails. The intention in the long term would be to connect everything as best we can. So on if memory serves me right, the north side of Bailey Boswell, we would have sidewalks.
Well, I was just talking about theirs. I don't mean to get into it. Just I was
Sure.
hoping that theirs would part of the plan of building this tied it in.
There certainly would be an opportunity, I believe, on the main entry thoroughfare, Belt Mill Parkway.
But it's not part of the plan right now, what they're doing.
Nick, do you mean tying all the Belt Mill parks together? Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get a sidewalk into Belt Mill, you're going to connect, which I think we can, but it'll have its own self-contained trail system in Belt Mill.
But they said we'd get a
Belt Mill Parkway, the
said we
spine
could
road through Belt Mill will have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And
Are we allowed, is the public allowed to use this fishing dock? Or is it just for the people inside the enclosed area?
Yeah, they will be just for the residents. They won't be allowing.
So I can't even go fishing there.
Well, now you're in trouble.
You can now the lake and stuff, the pond at the entry and stuff. That's
That's
all
what we're talking about, the
accessible to.
pond.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's all accessible
Yeah.
to the public. I thought you meant the amenities within this gate.
No, we
I'm
want
sorry.
fishing docks on
No, yes. All the stuff up at the entry, that's all going to be open to the public and accessible to anyone. If somebody wants to just go up there and park and walk around the lake or fish or take their kids or anything like that, yes, that'll totally be available for them. And that's kind of where we're putting our oomph, so to speak. It's right at our front door, so we want to
And
take
we can get
advantage of
some
that.
ducks too, okay?
So can the public walk the walking trails, or is that restricted also to the residents? Because in the
What-
gated areas, are they going to be, you just get to walk around your gated area, or are all those
Well,
trails connected?
we're putting sidewalks along Belt Mill Parkway all the way from one end to the other, and that will be outside of their gate. So that everything along Belt Mill Parkway will connect so that you can walk from one end to the other, and actually even extending north into Fort Worth, their city streets will have sidewalks too. So there'll be connectivity, back and forth if people want to walk. And
The walking trails on the perimeter are closed to the public and to people outside of that gated community?
no, they'll be
Not-
accessible.
Okay, so I guess I'm not talking about the ones along the roadway. I'm talking about the ones back. So it looks like you have a trail running along
Behind it
Bailey
there by the
Boswell
railroad tracks.
and along the railroad tracks. Those are going to be out. The walking trails are going to be outside the gate or inside the gates.
Is that a walking trail or is that just a green space? That's a buffer green space, right?
Yes, that's the railroad buffer and the green space.
I don't think it's officially a trail.
Our PD requires some buffers and stuff.
Typically, no. Yeah, I'm thinking that's all buffer.
Yes. Yeah, heading along the railroad, right at the city line, basically. From there on north of the railroad in Fort Worth, there's a gas well access road back there, so there won't be any trails or anything for it to tie to in Fort Worth on the back. So
I'm just having a hard time seeing your trails on these drawings.
Taylor Morrison. About the trails, I can't see too well from here, but everything inside of this site plan, the gated community, will be private for the use of the tenants. So, as Don has mentioned, they're building Belt Mill Parkway right now, and there will be, in the right-of-way, public use sidewalk there, which will be connected later to whatever other trail system. But everything inside of what you're seeing here is for private use by the tenants.
All right, council, other questions? Other questions? Questions, concerns, council? All right, this is a public hearing, so the public is encouraged to speak on this subject. You do not need to fill out a form. You can just approach the dais and speak. So if anybody would like to speak on this subject, please. Now's the time. If not, at 6:47, I'll take us out of a public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Mayor.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2021-25 as presented.
I'll second.
Charles, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you. All right, item number 7. Consideration action regarding resolution 2021-27, approval of Belt Mill Public Improvement District Preliminary Service and Assessment Plan. For that, City Manager Gabe Braham.
Mayor and council, we're preparing you for a future career in jeopardy with acronyms related to public financing. So the TERS board met for the first time earlier to approve a project plan. Tonight before you is a project plan related to a public improvement district. So Kyle Sikorsky with P3 is going to give a 37-second overview of a public improvement district. We have the eligible projects. Happy to answer any questions at the conclusion.
I'll time you right.
Mayor, Council, I guess I have to speak quickly. As you'll recall, the PID is a economic development tool that the city has at its disposal to encourage economic development. And so this PID is able to help with the financing of public infrastructure. So this PID is over the Belt Mill development. This is the first step after creation, really moving forward. The document that was included in your council packet is the Preliminary Service and Assessment Plan. That SAP is really the governing document for the PID, and so it outlines the history of the development, it outlines the public improvements that can be paid for through the PID, it outlines the assessment methodology, includes the assessment roles and projected debt service schedule for this. So as you'll recall, this is what we call a pay-as-you-go PID or a reimbursement PID. What that means is the developer has agreed to upfront finance the cost of the public infrastructure himself and then be reimbursed through the collection of the annual installments over time. So the developer is upfronting 100% of the cost of the public infrastructure and then just being reimbursed over time through that annual installment. So this document is really how we actually go through that process, and it goes through the details of, as we plat the property, how the assessments will be allocated to the various property, what the assessments will be on the different single-family, multifamily commercial property. If you'll recall in previous discussion, the goal of the PID from a tax rate perspective was to get reach about a 28-cent tax rate equivalent on all of the property. And how we get to that number is basically taking the city of Fort Worth tax rate, deducting the Saginaw tax rate, and that difference between those two is 28 cents. And so this document is in line with that. All the assessments with the estimated build-out value of the property would equate to a 28-cent tax rate equivalent on all future property owners. So that is in line with previous discussions. The resolution before you tonight is just a resolution accepting this preliminary service and assessment plan and calling a public hearing for December 7th. So you're really just calling a public hearing at this meeting. You're not levying any kind of assessment at this time. You would expect the final SAP presented on December 7th to be very similar to this document before you tonight, but again, you're not actually levying any assessments tonight. You're just calling a public hearing and directing staff to mail and publish notice to the property owners. So any other questions? That was probably about 2 minutes and 37
That's
seconds.
fair.
I apologize.
That was
but
good.
Any questions I can answer?
That was good. Any questions for Kyle?
Mayor, I just have two quick additions. One, I want to draw to your attention to a memo that our financial advisor, Mark McCliney, prepared for you regarding PID financing. Two, in the PID assessment plan, rather lengthy document, on page 24, Exhibit B, there's a schedule of anticipated costs, so I'm just going to run through it quickly. All total, almost $10 million, $3.3 million in roads, water and sanitary sewer, about $1 million, storm drainage, $2 million, landscaping and parks, we kind of talked about that previously, about 1.7, and then about $2 million in other costs. So again, these are costs that would not be borne by the taxpayer, but they'd be paid by PID assessments.
Yeah, and it's important that at the very bottom of Mark McCliney's email, he's got in bold. I would point your attention to bold, and I'll read it real quickly. It's important to remember the assessments are only paid by the people that live within the PID and not from other taxpayers. Further, although public improvements will be dedicated to the city will have no financial obligation to pay for any of the construction unless we request oversizing. No taxes, revenues, or other funds of the city will be dedicated to this project, and nothing that the city does will constitute any obligation. The city will be reimbursed for all costs, including time of staff time and outside consultants by the developer. Finally, the PID will not hurt the city's bond rating. So that's important to keep in mind. Any other questions for Kyle? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions on PID? I think our PID 101. That was very good. No other questions? I will entertain a motion for item number 7.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the resolution number 2021-27, approval of the Belt Mill Public Improvement District Preliminary Service and Assessment Plan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second? Charlie Tucker. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Awesome. Thank you, guys. Item number 8, at 6:53, we're in public hearing. Consideration action regarding a text amendment to the Code of Ordinances Appendix A, amending the regulations, Section 8.3, subparagraph A3, pertaining to patio covers. For that, Director of Public Works, Rick Trice.
Thank you again, Mayor. We were approached, staff was approached to look at the attached patio cover requirements. Currently, the ordinance requires that a patio cover cannot exceed 225 square feet in an area, and that the largest dimension of that patio cover or the projection of the patio itself would be no more than 15 feet, so quite restrictive in terms of what you could build in the backyard. So we'll hear from, I believe, the gentleman tonight that is interested in the change. We examined that and thought that the dimensions that were in the ordinance today are arbitrary and restrictive. So we have crafted this new ordinance, which essentially only changes 2 provisions in the existing language. And one is that The maximum height would be limited to 12 feet, although if you're tying into an existing gable, again, this would be an attached patio cover, then you could match the height of the building itself. And then secondly, the setbacks that you could encroach to a point within 5 feet of the rear property line, provided you don't encroach into any kind of an easement. On the side yard, you would adhere to the side yard. So from the street view, looking back toward the backyard to where the patio cover would be, you would not see any encroachment into the side yard. So anyway, the P&Z discussed this last week at their meeting and recommended approval by a 4-1 vote. I believe I had that in the minutes, but most of their discussion kind of centered on materials, which really was not even part of the amendment. So they made a full circle and recommended approval 4-1. So if you got questions, I'll try to answer those. I know we have at least one speaker, perhaps.
Got questions for Rick before we?
The patio cover can't go over the driveway, can it?
This is rear patio, so attached. So yeah, so it would still be patio covers in the context that you're speaking of would be like a carport with those detached structures. Yeah.
Everybody wants a carport, not a patio cover.
Yeah.
So.
I will state that I feel that the current existing one is way overbearing upon our citizens, and I think this goes a long way in fixing that.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's very good to be brought up.
Other questions, council? Yes, Cindy.
I'm looking at 3C, enclosure. It says the cover cannot be enclosed with any material, permanent or temporary, and must be open on at least 3 sides. Does that mean you can't have like mosquito and sunblock curtains and things on there as well? Is there a good reason why?
What about the screens that come down? The rolled screens that come down and they go back up? You can't.
They're saying no.
That's what Cindy's asking.
I'd like to, I don't like the sun blaring in my eyes when I'm sitting outside in the backyard. It'd be nice to be able to put those screens up. And with mosquitoes that we have in town.
You don't want somebody building a room outside. That's what you're. Right.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
I mean, if it has to be replaced every couple of years, it's really not permanent.
I mean, what's
Well, that's the only problem I have with this ordinance.
I'd like to hear from the gentleman that brought this up. You want to come speak? It's you.
Brack St. Clair, 421 Creek Terrace. I originally brought this up because I had a friend of mine. I talked about putting a patio out in the backyard, and talked to a friend of mine about it, and he said, "Why don't you do a gabled patio cover? Attach it, do it upright." And so I submitted all that, and they told me it's too big. You'd have to reduce the size of it to fit the requirements, because my patio or my backyard is smaller than a lot of backyards. So I asked the question, okay, if I don't like that answer, what can I do? And one of the things they said is that, well, you could just not attach it, and you can put that same patio cover up. It just can't be attached to the house. And I said, so you're telling me that if I want to just kind of do it, that I can, but if I want to put some real money into my house, and I want to improve the value of my house, and I want to pay more money in property taxes every year, that the city right now says, we don't really like that. And that's essentially what was going on. So I asked if I could file a variance or if something else could be done, and that's when they started looking into it. So,
Any questions for Brad? For our resident patio expert? All right. Thanks, sir.
thank you.
Anyone else? This is a public hearing, so anyone else can approach and speak. City staff, citizen, otherwise. You're welcome to come speak on this subject.
I'd still like to hear from our code enforcement guy about the enclosures. I mean, if you're going to put a patio out in the backyard, most people intend to spend time out there.
You want to come on up? Come on up.
Like just curtains or, like she said, just roll-up shades.
Yes. So, my name is Chris Dyer. I'm with the City of Saginaw Building Department, Deputy Building Official. So, correct. Whenever those screen enclosures do go in, whenever you're building past that build line, we don't want those three sides to be covered, because at that point it becomes a building addition and not a patio cover. A patio cover, by our definition, is open on all three sides and not having those walls enclosed. So same as like a carport. A carport is open on all three sides and not closed in on those four walls. So a temporary structure, as far as the roll-up shades, those are temporary, so they can either go up or they can go down. But once you put those screens in, you're framing it up and you're stapling it, and it's kind of more permanent.
So the bamboo roll-up screens are acceptable?
They're more like temporary structures. If you just want to have, like, if you go outside of your patio cover, and yeah, the sun is coming in from the east or the west, you can roll those down, and you're only out there for the time being. But screening material.
I mean, like a framed in something.
Yeah, framing it in.
I was talking about like the mosquito net curtains and the sunblock curtain.
I will state the way the ordinance is written tonight, that it's either permanent or temporary, so even temporary.
So can we
screening would not be
revise
allowed.
this?
What can we say to make it a little more bamboo friendly? Whatever you call
Well, I
those.
mean, they even have the flexible curtain screens. You tie them back like you would your drapes inside your house.
Yeah,
Because then it's
I mean,
not
other
carpet.
than
I mean,
what our
it's not
ordinance
patio
does say is that it cannot be enclosed on three of the walls or three of the sides.
They used
It has to be open on all three sides.
used to it with
Our ordinance is not very clear as far as mosquito screening and having that as an exception. It just says as far as any construction materials on all three sides.
What about the screen or screening material that has the magnets in it that
that's
people are
typical.
putting
Go on
in front of their
garages
garage doors right
yes,
now?
and again, I don't know as far as the.
I mean, those are put in with tacks.
Absolutely.
I mean, thumbtacks.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you say temporary something that you could take down within a
Yeah,
15 to
I
20
don't think
minutes
we
if
actually
it's-
have.
If it's framed in, that's a permanent
Yeah,
structure.
and I,
So, here's where I'm struggling with, as looking as a citizen. I bought my house, I'm doing this stuff. Why can't I have a screened-in porch on my backyard? It's my backyard. Unless you can give me a safety reason or something like that, I consider this as a bad ordinance, and we need to change it today. So is there a safety reason or something like that that I can't have a screened-in porch?
there's not a safety reason other than the encroachment past the required build line. That's why the ordinance is trying to be changed tonight, because we did have that regulation on nothing larger than 15 by 15 by our ordinance. In most cases, if a city does not allow something, then a realtor, say, come in the future, if it's built over that encroachment and it exceeds the maximum of that city, they typically come to us and ask, was it permitted, was it inspected? And if we're changing the ordinance tonight, if you have an enclosement, especially with our definition of patio cover for all three sides being open, if those are closed in, then they consider that a building addition as like habitable space.
That's an extra room. Yeah.
Yes.
That's one.
So if I have a front porch and it faces west, and I put those little bamboo screens or even the flexible shades, for lack of a better term, like Charlie's talking about, just to kind of block the sun, am I breaking?
No, ma'am, because your front porch is actually inside your required yard, front yard, side yard, rear yard. So with
So
this, if it wasn't beyond your build line, then it could be a building addition. You can enclose all 4 walls inside your build yard or build line. But once you go past that 10 or 15 or 10 or 20 foot rear yard requirement per lot, depending on which zoning district you're in, if you go beyond that, then it has to be open on all 3 sides, because you can't have a building addition encroach past.
I think
Hold on.
I might add,
The living space.
Explain the build line, that way they.
Because living space, garage don't count. So just because I screen in my porch, that don't make it living space, and it wouldn't count. If I went to sell my house, I wouldn't get counted as living square foot if I put a
No.
screen around it.
No.
So to me, still, I'm back to, I don't know why me or any other person in
I
SAG
think
can't have a screened in porch.
maybe we've got a friendly amendment that maybe will solve the problem. I think just with adding the language that the cover cannot be enclosed with any weatherproofing material,
I like that.
permanent or temporary. So that gives the building official discretion to say whether or not that's going to be an addition at some point. But
You've got a slab, more than likely, and you've got a solid roof over the thing. I mean, if I want to spend time out there, I don't want to be eaten up by mosquitoes, and I don't want the sun blinding me.
Yes.
Especially if I'm trying to barbecue something.
I think the language I would just propose would solve that problem.
Right. So,
All right, so say it again, Rick.
As it all material, sorry, the cover cannot be enclosed with any weatherproofing material.
So that's on
permanent or
that-
temporary.
That's amending 3C, correct?
Right.
So that would be like brick, siding.
It could be
Anything brick.
a plastic wall, anything that's going to protect you from, that's going to stop the movement of air through the structure.
So it cannot be,
I got it.
you got it?
Mhm.
Okay.
And that, that's going to leave the building official some discretion.
No,
mean,
yeah, I
that's a
want they'll
little-
have some discretion as well. It's,
Yeah.
Some of ours are a little gray, and that's okay. But I think that gets to the spirit of what we're trying to do, but also makes some flexibility for, yeah. All right.
Fair.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Anybody else want to speak? We're still in a public hearing. I don't think have I closed it yet? I haven't closed it yet. It's hard for me to remember. So I think we're still in a public hearing. Anybody else want to speak? You can come speak right now. If not, at 7:08, takes out of a public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the action regarding the text amendment of the code ordinances with the addition of the closure saying any weatherproofing material as presented.
I'll second.
Is that okay?
Is that clear enough, Bryn?
Yes, I think it's clear. I think we have a consensus.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody clear on the motion? All right. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bracken. All right. Moving on. Item number 9. Consideration and action regarding a recommendation from reinvestment zone number 1, City of Saigon Protection Board of Directors. This says Bryn. Is this Bryn or is this Gabe?
Mayor and Council, so earlier the Board of Directors of the TERS, which is this body, met to review. There's no additions. Happy to answer any questions you might have. There is an exhibit of the boundaries of the TERS, I believe, at your seat. So
Right, let's see.
myself, Bryn, Kyle, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Right, and it seems redundant to take action on it again when you serve as the board of directors, but that's just exactly what you're doing.
Can we put this up on the screen? Do we have this on the screen? We can pop up for everybody to see? Because we've got it, but the fans in the audience don't have it. So let everybody see this. What our TERS is.
Here.
I know. Thanks, Vanna. There you go. There we go.
There we go.
So it is not just Belt Mill. It encompasses some other property as well, including, I guess 4 different areas. And even So that's what the TERS that we're talking about is. That's the actual zone. Council, any other questions?
what's this little blue spot?
That's
on
the
the bottom?
that's the new fire department, right? You know what that is?
I don't think so.
So what?
The little tiny one that's not numbered at the bottom. That's the current.
The current fire department, sorry.
Current fire station. Fire station 1.
Right. Ah, fire station, yeah. All right. Council, other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion on item number 9.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the the reinvestment zone number 1, City of Saginaw, Texas Board of Directors regarding the ordinance number 2021-27, reinvestment zone number 1 as presented.
Nick, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, thank you, guys. All right, item number 10. Consider action regarding rate increase request for waste connections for solid waste and recycling services. Assistant City Manager Dolph Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Waste Connections provides the solid waste and recycling services for the City of Saginaw and has since 2007. We've received a request from them for a rate increase of 2.97% in the rates. Our contract with Waste Connections has specific language in it regarding the type of, or the amount of rate increase they can request. It's a subsection of the Consumer Price Index. And by using what's in the contract, they're actually eligible to request 4.7% increase, but they're only asking for 2.97. So what that means in terms of residential rates is another 38 cents pre-tax per month for residential pickup, and of course 2.97% across the board on all the commercial rates. So you have all of the history of our contract and our rate increases in your council packets. Mr. Norm Bulash is here tonight representing Waste Connections, and I'm sure he can answer any questions you have.
I think we want to hear from Norm. Come on up.
Just because you hadn't
Come
been
on.
here in a while.
I know you haven't been here in a while, so we need to hear from you.
It's not easy getting up anymore.
Wow.
Thank you, Dolph. He just said my speech. First thing I would like to put in 2 parts. We would hope that y'all would vote on the increase, and the second part is sort of personal and personal to the city. I've been with the City of Saginaw a long time in this industry, and I don't know. I told them the people I work with are far. I said I'm going to retire. He said, "Well, you can't retire." I said, "I can retire," but they've been very good to me, and I'm sort of not as active as I used to be. Plus, the pandemic didn't help. I couldn't get out on the street. I've had some health issues a little bit myself with, and that's a long story. And with the beverage of choice, we might do that. But anyway, I just it's been fun. I in this industry is you go ups and downs, but I've had the City of Saginaw has been, and that's why I wanted to come tonight. I was given a choice of going to some other city, but I said I'm going to Saginaw. I thank y'all a bunch, and it goes back to your dad, and previous to that. It's been 30-something years that I've been dealing with Saginaw, and y'all have always been good to me. And when you get to be, I'll be 75 Christmas Day. Don't worry about getting me any gifts. So, but it's just the aging process is slow. I mean, it's not fun. I don't know. Somebody told me so. 75 are going to be fun. No, it's achy. You know, everybody's got their issue. But anyway, I guess y'all vote on the deal. But I wanted to thank y'all personally from the bottom of my heart. Mm-hmm. How much Saginaw's meant to me.
Well, you can still come by and say hi every once in a while.
You what?
You can still come by and say hi every once in a while.
Well, and again, I will.
There you go.
I will.
Are y'all got any questions? Any questions for Norm, for Dolph, for anybody about waste? I know we had some issues during the Ice-Mageddon ice storm, but I think a lot of that cleared up after we got through that brush, so I haven't heard any issues since. No major issues. No concern. Okay. Yes, Cindy.
Norm, I really appreciate what you guys do, and I try to stand out on the front porch, on Monday and Thursday mornings and wave to your guys. But I still see a lot of trash cans in the middle of the road.
Okay.
I've watched them take the recycle bins, throw them 2-3 houses across. Of course, that's not a long distance living on a cul-de-sac, but
They're not supposed to.
I know,
We'll
but
address it. I'll address it. And
it happens frequently. Trash cans on the curb are one thing, but literally, people have to drive around them, and they can't pass on the road.
And one thing I do respect about our people and expect from them is that they do that they're told to do. Their jobs are hard.
I understand.
They are,
and they're
can't-
fast.
And I go out and the dispatch a lot and just thank them for doing their job, and we've done a good job historically in the city and other cities too. So, it's not an easy job, but we pick it up, and I will address that because they're not supposed to throw the cans, supposed to lay them down or put them up upside down.
Yeah, somewhere near the curb would be nice.
Ma'am?
Somewhere near the curb would be nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I appreciate it, and again, we appreciate you. You've always been good to us, and
Yeah, no problem.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Boulash, I've got to brag on my crews that come by my house. Those guys are great. There are times that I come back and I find my big, 64 gallon or something?
5 gallon.
Yeah, up by the garage door for me. Where do you get that? These guys are good.
How much are you paying them?
I know you did.
Actually, what I really do, especially during the summer when it's really hot, is if I'm at home when they come by, I got a little refrigerator in the garage, and I buy Gatorade. Those big bottles of Gatorade, and I'll take them Gatorade out there
Now I know what
and give it to them.
There you go.
Put it on a bench.
There you go.
And that gets me, my city councilman card gets me a little extras.
Okay.
See,
But yeah, they're great guys. They really are.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Norm.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Have a Merry Christmas.
We will. All right. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain action. Just Janice, are we doing on this one? Or are we doing on 10 or 11 or both? Okay. Then I'm action on number 10.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the rate increase request from Waste Connections as presented.
Okay. Do I have a second? Cindy, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Excellent. So moving forward to item number 11, and Janice, tell me the difference between item number 11.
Item number 11, we have a master fee ordinance that has all of our fees that we charge through every department in it. So when we do something like this, an increase in a rate, adding a rate, then we need to put that into our master fee ordinance. So the trash residential rate is already in there. We just need to amend that ordinance to reflect the new rate that just approved.
Okay. Any questions on that, council? We good? Then I'll entertain a motion on that one, too.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the ordinance number 2021-28, amending the residential trash and recycle rate as presented.
Okay. Charles Tucker. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Janice. All right, item number 12. Kimley Horn, project update. Is that you, Trenton? All right.
He said, no, it's me tonight.
Mayor, council, staff, I'm Brad Russ. I work for Kimley Horn. And my team has been helping Rick and his staff manage the construction of the Bailey Boswell Bridge project. I'm happy to tell you that we're getting close. It is nearing completion. But as often happens on construction projects, there are a lot of details that we got to go back and we got to get things buttoned up, cleaned up, those kinds of things. We've got just a variety of different issues. There is one railroad coordination issue that still hangs out there. Just a part of the construction, the contractor damaged some pavement on Bailey Boswell, moving big cranes and equipment. That pavement has been restored, but we have to go back and we have to do some signal loop repairs. So we will have to coordinate with the railroad regarding those repairs. But I think other than that, we do have a walkthrough that we're trying to schedule as a preliminary walkthrough with the contractor, just to give them a final list of, here's some things you guys need to button up before we close out the project. So we're getting close. So any questions about Bailey Boswell?
Council, questions?
We still looking January 2022 to open the bridge?
I think that's the current goal, yes. Now, railroad issues, obviously we can't make any promises, but
Charlie?
that is the current goal, is January.
Are you saying they're stubborn?
No comment.
I know that is nicely.
Other questions, council? So the one thing we're waiting on is also the Knowles, which is not you, but is the Knowles signal, right? That's the one holdup, probably? The signal light?
The signal at Knowles.
Okay.
That's correct. And that project is currently under construction, and they're waiting on some signal arms. As you know, lead time on a lot of construction materials right now is an issue. So I believe they are still on track to be here in November, or in January, rather, I believe. So I think we're still on track to be able to open the bridge in January.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks, sir. Appreciate the update. Keep it up. Good news. All right, item number 13, code enforcement update.
Mayor.
All
Sorry.
right. Who we got?
Just
Dolph.
So we had an additional project update on 12.
Oh, we do?
Sorry about that.
Nobody told me. Sorry.
So this isn't technically a project, actually, but Gabe and Rick had asked me to take a look at the Minton and McElroy crossings at Maine. And so I wanted to just give a quick kind of debriefing on what those timelines could look like if council and staff wanted to reconstruct or improve those approaches and crossings. So they're pretty different, so we'll start with Minton. The Minton crossing, the scope of work we're kind of looking at would be replacing the pavement between Main and the first track and then between the tracks. I believe the section that's east of the tracks up to Jarvis has already been replaced and improved. So since that section would not be a widening or modification, I think this can be handled with a permit. I know Rick and I have both been looking into those BNSF permits, and I think that's how that would go. You would need to hire railroad flaggers, and Rick's working on a contract with them that can be used on multiple projects. So I think if this was an improvement that staff wanted to go with, it would be 4 to 8 months to coordinate that type of permit and decide how we would want to handle getting a contractor, whether that's through the county or bidding and selecting a contractor. So that's the Minton improvement. Pretty straightforward and simple. McElroy is
How much
different.
would it cost?
I did not prepare a cost estimate. We were still kind of deciding on the scope and how if we would improve east of the tracks. I can look into that if you'd like. Okay, I can do that. McElroy, on the other hand, is a much larger project. I've penciled in some limits that you can see on the screen. Going to the very eastern, I'll call it a track, but it just serves those buildings. We've also discussed extending this to Spring Hollow with the development that could potentially come in on Spring Hollow. So this would be not just replacing pavement, but it would be modifying and expanding, potentially adding, sidewalk along the north or both sides of the roadway to meet the ultimate cross-section. And so you would have to modify the signals and add panels potentially. So this would definitely not be something you could handle with a permit, and the railroad would look to have a construction and maintenance agreement. Those can be pretty tough to coordinate, and in the brochures and in our experience, those can take 18 to 24 months to settle on. So if this was a improvement that we wanted to schedule, McElroy Phase 2 includes this in the CIP plan from this to the S-curve along McRoy. But just a quick breakdown of how that would probably go. We would have, survey and conceptual design that would take 3 months. You would need to have a diagnostic meeting with the railroad to decide what improvements are needed at their track, and then to negotiate that agreement would take about 24 months. Design of McRoy could be concurrent with that agreement process, where the railroad decides the scope, the design, the pricing, and then that agreement would need to be adopted by council and accepted by the railroad ultimately. So that would be a lengthy process if we wanted to improve that and modify or expand the cross-section.
So we asking if we want to go forward with this? Is that what we're asking here?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'm sure you hear the complaints related to the railroad crossings and just to the east of Saginaw Boulevard. That was the intent tonight, to bring you the information. Unfortunately, when working with the railroads, it's not a quick process, so we just want to bring that to your attention.
How would this be funded?
We could look at street maintenance funds. We'd probably phase it over multiple budget years, so once we get cost estimates, it's not designed and that sort of thing.
Right. So, currently phase 3 and 4, which are west of Main Street, are included in the bond that was passed. And like I said, McRoy phase 2 is on the CIP plan, but there's no decided plan on how to fund that specifically. But I agree. I think Minton especially could be handled with maintenance funds if that's the route y'all want.
Yeah, Minton sounds quick and cheap. Well, not cheap, but cheaper.
Right, for sure.
McRoy would be a big endeavor. Yeah.
There is some complication on McElroy that I've just thought about. BNSF, at one time earlier last year before the pandemic hit, was doing a high-speed parallel track at the eastern crossing. And they had plans to replace 75 to 100 feet of pavement to concrete with their new railroad crossings. So that would offset or maybe supplement our work at some point if they ever. Everything was put on hold because of the pandemic, so they ran out of funding, and we don't know where that project status, where it stands today. But it is on the horizon for BNSF. We know that. So perhaps, there's an opportunity to partner with BNSF if they come back and want to go forward with that work. So what we've asked Kimley Horn to do earlier is to go ahead and prepare an IPO just to scope, so we could prepare plans and specs and the necessary permits to go forward with the work if we'd be in a position to launch, if we get an opportunity like that at some point in the future. We'd want to stop short of final plans because we don't want the plans to sit on the shelf and be dated over time. So, but I think that would be a good approach, just to kind of be in the blocks and ready if the opportunity comes.
Yes, Mary?
I'm very much in favor of doing something. And would that permanently solve the problem of the bouncing of the cars along the railroad tracks?
The railroad has replaced those crossings at least twice in the last year or 2 years, and they settle. And Minton is a prime example. That's less than a year old, and it's like a moonscape to go across those tracks. So I don't think we can solve that problem, but we can sure make it smooth up to the transitions to the right of way, to their right of way.
Because that's the main complaint of residents, including myself, is that's really damaging people's automobiles and not very much fun to try to navigate. So anything we could do to improve that, I would be for.
Cindy, do you have a question?
Yeah. Since we're talking about East McElroy, as you head west on East McElroy and approach Saginaw Boulevard, you have 2 lanes that go across to West McElroy. I live on the west side of the tracks, so I'm heading east on West McElroy. And I can't tell you how many times I sit at that traffic signal wanting to go north on Saginaw Bain because the car in front of me wants to go straight and can't because of the railroad.
It's train, yeah.
The trains are on the tracks. I think because it's 2 lanes headed westbound, I think we could make one of those westbound lanes 1 lane, and then on West McElroy headed eastbound, I think we can make that a left turn lane. Could we look at the possibility of doing that, maybe getting the traffic to move a little bit better than what it is?
Certainly. I mean, when we looked at the funding and the applications for McElroy Phase 3, which is the section west of the tracks, we did look at improving that intersection to where you could have multiple lanes heading east. It is pretty tight right away there with, I'm familiar with the donut shop. I don't know what else is in that building. Terry's, I believe. So there was kind of tight right away wise, but that definitely was an improvement that we were anticipating handling, and it was budgeted for to expand heading eastbound with that Phase 3 McElroy.
Phase 3 includes, okay, this gets complicated, the eastmost side of West McElroy.
Yes, from 287 to Knowles, I believe.
Okay.
So if we were to move forward with kind of a conceptual plan for east of Main Street, we would definitely coordinate that eastbound traffic to where we could try to have multiple lanes.
Any other questions, council? So I think we're in agreement. We want to pursue these. Don't know the numbers yet. Want to see what the numbers are, see what time, but I think we definitely want to pursue this. I think everybody's okay with that. When I say Minton, let's full steam ahead. That sounds like that'd be a quick, fast one. Quick, fast. A quicker one, and maybe, but let's see what we got. So, yeah. Definitely. Thank you, Trenton.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're done with Kimley Horn? Okay, all right. Item number 13, code enforcement. All my code enforcement friends stayed late. Appreciate it, guys. Let's see what we got. So we got Kevin and Chris. All right.
Well, Mayor and City Council, I appreciate y'all having me here. Chris is going to help get some stuff set up for you that I think will really help drive the point. Give me 5 minutes to explain to you what's going on and where we're at, and then I'll give the rest of the time to Lisa. Biggest point I do want to get to while they're getting that set up, I got most of my presentation just in that first slide for you. So cut short to the point, there's a lot going on right now. It's more than we ever thought probably would have happened. Staff is trying to keep up the best we can. Y'all made some improvements this time last year to help update our rental ordinance, and it helped a lot. I'll show you proof here in a second. I highly encourage all of you to come visit us, check it out, see what we see every day, and we'll prove this even further. So just getting straight into things here, for the fiscal year 2020-2021, we're sitting just under 2,000 rental permits. Little under 1083 of that is single-family homes, and the rest is divided in between multifamily, complex, duplex, fourplex, and townhomes. I will mention that multifamily complex, a little star by that, there are actually 590 units in Saginaw. The extra 118 permits are buildings, which still take up time, office time, getting a permit organized and getting that fixed up. Looking over to our rental cases, this is where you'll see more of our inspection statuses, how things are going. You see 1267, that number is different from your 1956 because multifamily is counted only once. So you'll get that difference in numbers. And even then, it's going to be a bit higher because on your identified number, we have 23. Just in the past few weeks, we found 23 new rentals properties. Usually gives us about 2 weeks before they move into the approved status. These are people still needing an inspection. I will highlight that here real quick. 709 properties are in need of an inspection right now. I'll show you our rental calendar. We are fully booked for a while, and we still have to get over this hump. If you go down one, you'll see our active properties. These are the guys that are currently on current with their inspections. They won't need one for a little bit. Delinquent, these are the folks that are properties that we know is a rental. They just haven't secured their rental permit, and they're moving further in our process. Over into inspections. For the last year, we completed nearly 7,500 rental inspections. That is a lot by any means. If you average it out, we do about 40 inspections a day. That's 10 properties, 4 inspections per property, 40 a day, Monday through Thursday. That does not count our Friday inspections, which are for office work, special cases, or helping out the building department in general. We've got a lot going on. If you talk to any other city, they're lucky to push 3 to 5 inspections, 3 to 5 properties a day. So we're easily doubling that and doing pretty busy right now. I will highlight this next section. It's pretty busy right now. It's not even nowhere near what's coming. So just next year, we do know that there will be an additional 277 units proposed. They're in the framing stage now, so by this time next year, we'll see pretty close to being done with that. An additional, adds that 708, 277 right there. Moving down, we have another apartment complex. Now, instead of 1 of 3, it's 1 of 2 because of what y'all just did this council meeting with Belt Mill. Instead of 3 apartment complexes, they'll have 2 and the single family, and the changes that were made today. So just those coming through. Those are good changes. However, what are you going to do with the rest of the 1,000 in Belt Mill that's going on right now? It's pretty busy, and we've got, I remind you, 1 inspector, 1 dedicated rental inspector. The other guys are busy trying to get those places built. So it takes quite a bit of time to work through all of this. Going into potential units, outside of that 1,000 in Belt Mill, we've got another potential. This could happen, this might not happen. Room for at least another 1,500 or so coming in. So be wary that we've got a lot right now. We've got plenty more coming. So into the fun part. This is a map of all the Saginaw rental properties. Everything in green here is all rentals. So you can see it in the presentation, but also right here. It really helps highlight this. It does not discriminate anywhere. You'll see even some of our newer spots in town. There are rentals popping up all throughout Saginaw here. These are complexes, a whole street of rentals right there. So that really puts it into perspective. This is everywhere. We're happy it's here. We're working through it. This program does a great job of helping maintain, keep things good. But it's a lot of work. It's got a lot of properties, and it's just getting bigger. Down to the permit breakdown. So I'll continue on here. I'm trying to make it quick for you. But basically, highest number I want to mention to you, we're up 20% since the program started. 20% of rentals. That is all, for the most part, single family. We have built no new complexes since 2019. It's all been single family houses we found right here in Saginaw. All this, your permits, these are handled by 2 full-time staff and 1 intern who I will introduce tonight. Jerry, if you want to stand up here, he is our new rental, and I threw him right into the fire. So he is helping us get ready for the permits that are coming through. Our busy time is, thank you, Jerry. I encourage you all, meet Jerry, come see us in the office, and get to talk with him, get to see what he's seen. He's been here a few weeks now, and he can tell you quite a bit of what's going on. So, like I mentioned, that's done with 2 staff. That is not the inspector helping to get these permits going. You see the breakdown of the way things are going permit-wise. That blue line is this past year, and just see how much we're growing and growing. A big chunk of that is single family. Busy season is from January to March. That is when most of our rentals come through. Just in January alone, you'll see 896 permits come through in January. Most of that is multifamily. That's when, by ordinance, they were designated to be done. But it sort of tapers off a little bit and then goes into about average 50 to 60 a month through the rest of the year. So going through that. Jumping into the fees. So fees, these are parts that people like to see. We had 1838 billable permits. This takes the buildings from the apartment complexes out of that number because we don't charge for the buildings. We charge per unit, 75 per unit. And you will highlight one of the changes we made last year. The council, you guys had approved to put on these delinquent fees. We had trouble getting people to actually sign up, and we're pushing through, taking up a lot of staff time and trying to chase some of this stuff down. So delinquent fees really helped catch their attention, take us seriously. 4,000 in that. I will say that's about 200 rental delinquent fees. So 10% of all that went through had that little attachment onto it. So just a little bit of a defense there. You only get a delinquent fee after these situations. So we've emailed, we've mailed, and we've reached out to you at least 3 times, and you've had at least a 2-month period before we actually charge you any kind of fee in addition to the regular rental permit fees. So we try and get people in as quickly as possible, but 200 people didn't get that message, and that's where we ended up with that. The reinspection fees, just touch on that real quick. That comes up whenever we visit property twice, same problem twice, they get charged on a 3rd trip. That's a big waste. It takes up a lot of time from our inspector that we really don't have, and you will see coming up with our inspections chart. 7,500 rental inspections just this past year. Less than half of those passed. That means we need to go back and get these going back and forth to work with them. We had a trend during COVID, so we paused inspections altogether through the summer of 2020. Tried opening up back for a little bit. October, that's really where that stopped, so we had to go to vacants only. We did that through the winter, and about March, you can see where we shot back up and opened things. So these numbers have just been going, and our calendar has been super full. I will remind you, that is all with one inspector, one dedicated rental inspector. This is what he sees every morning. Whenever he goes, he checks out the rental calendar. You'll see what we have. This is September's. It has a really good breakdown. We've got single families going on. You've got multifamily complexes going on, and even a few times on Fridays where he's doing that. So all of that, also to get people onto the calendar, we reach out multiple times. Nobody usually gets it on the first try. So we need to say, hey, it's time to get back on the schedule. Let's go and make sure everything is finished okay. That takes up staff time quite a bit, actually. So I will mention that. This is what the people see whenever they go to schedule their rental inspection. This is our rental calendar. This was taken last week. We had no availability, and that trend continues all the way through to Christmas week. So we are fully booked up until Christmas week. So it's not that people aren't signing up. It's just a lot to get through. Program impact, this is also some fun stuff. So a little bit of an eye catcher there. This happened in a apartment complex back when the program started. Bathroom, sink, tub. I don't know about you, but that's not what I'm feeling. This is what it is now. Bit of an improvement. Go back, right there. Very nice. We are very proud of the way that these complexes have been working with us, and they're doing very good. Living room and hallway, also same complex. Today. Last week, to be fair. So, bit of a difference. Now, being fair to them, these are the model versions that they show to potential tenants. So, no personal possessions were shown in those. It's just, this is what they're going for as they remodel their units. This is the kind of looks that they're trying to achieve, which they've been doing pretty well with. Up to that, hopefully it hasn't been 5 minutes yet. This is just that first slide again. I'm open to any questions. If not, I'll take it to Lisa, and I'll also highly encourage y'all, come visit us, check it out with yourselves, and we'd love to welcome you all.
Questions for Kevin? Yes, Mary.
If somebody buys a single-family home and then they move, but they rent that home out, how do you find out about that?
Typically, we'll find out through water reports. We get those weekly. For rent signs, we'll see those pop up, and just through the inspectors or any city person driving around, you see a for rent sign, they'll reach out to us and say, do you know about this? And odds are we do. We catch them pretty quickly.
So you don't think there's a large number of unknown rental properties?
I wouldn't say unknown. It's a matter of they pop up, they close and open quite often, so that is always changing up and down. So as soon as we catch it, we get onto it pretty quick.
Other questions for Kevin?
Yeah.
Nikki?
So is it, I was sitting here trying to do some math, and this first page, is it, how many rental properties do we know we have? Is it right here on the front? If I add that up, it
it'll be
3,912. Is that it?
3,000. It's the permits that are properties are 1838. You just add up the 1956 minus 118 extra multifamily multifamily buildings, and you'll get to 1838. That are currently permitted, but add in those other 23 that we've identified in the past few weeks. That keeps adding, and people sell, people buy.
Right.
So that's going to change a little bit.
So it's around 2,000?
That we know of. Mhm.
Well, okay, that's all we can do. Okay. We can do 40 a day?
Yes, sir. 40, 10 a day, 10 properties a day, and they have 4 inspections.
Oh, what do you mean 4 inspections?
So
4
you-
inspectors?
No. So our inspector is licensed. They're some of the best licensed folks out around. They can look at plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and International Property Maintenance Codes, which is a catch-all.
So I guess to evaluate everything, how many did they do a day? 10?
10 properties, 40 inspections.
Okay, but 40 inspections. You do multiple inspections in one
property? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So basically, when you go into say my house is a rental, that's it. You can do 10 of those in a day.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's right.
And that's where that calendar comes in. That lets us make that real structured.
So what's our goal of getting through these whole 2,000? Is it one time a year, one inspection a year, two inspections?
Single family, the council recently changed that last year. So when you first join the program, you need to get your initial inspection no matter the year. Once you pass your initial inspection, you're on a schedule of, if you're an odd house, you'll be done on odd numbered years, even house, even numbered years.
So every other
Multifamily is done every year.
Okay, good, great, good stuff. I was looking, trying to get educated here a little bit.
For sure, we're happy to talk about it, and we'd love to welcome you too. It's a lot to look into.
So I want to say, last year when you guys did this presentation, I was overwhelmed by how much work you guys were doing, and I was glad we was able to put some mitigations in place.
It helps,
you know,
trust me, it helps.
but now y'all just didn't freak me out again. I mean, these numbers are literally overwhelming. I do want to do a ride along and come. Are you guys over at Jarvis, or where are y'all at?
We're at the
Okay. I need to set up something, so if you can send me an email and we can, because I definitely want to see more of what's going on, and I think you guys need some serious help. I'm overwhelmed by these numbers, and thank you. That's what I'll say. Thank you.
Absolutely. We have a really great team. Jared is our rental inspector. Every morning, 8 o'clock, he's out the door to that first property, and he doesn't come back till lunch. And then today, he didn't even make it back at 5:30. He was still with Chris and them working on getting other stuff built.
So did I understand right? You said there's like a 50% fail rate, or close to it? Wow. What's the common things that fails people?
Privacy locks, a lot of water heaters put in without permits. We'll catch those quite often. Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. Last year, the fire department was really big on backing us on that. Those are needed to be put in place, and they save lives. But those are biggies. What else?
I actually just went to one just this week, called out for rental inspection. I'm actually in the process of training another inspector as well. And we went to that house, and there was nothing in this house. No smoke detectors, no plugs, no sinks, no running water.
No carpet.
Second floor was almost falling through. So we pretty much had to go back to the office and say, don't call your inspection in unless you're ready for an inspection. But that also brought up another point of whenever we go into these homes, they're actually probably in the middle of trying to do a remodel, and nobody's looking at it. So this kind of gives us an opportunity to go into these homes that are routinely flipped, per se, and it gets us in there to make sure everything is safe and up to code before the rental inspector goes in to do his inspection, which is kind of hand in hand with the building codes. But he does have that property maintenance, which also goes into the Texas rental code as well. So as far as for all of our staff, we're making sure that each one of us is protected, and making sure that all of our citizens are protected as well. Even if they're renting in Saginaw, they're still our citizens, and we want to make sure that they're safe.
And that is one thing, too, that Lisa will touch on, is the amount of interconnectedness that we have now because of this rental program. We're working with the water department, we're working with the building guys, we're working with the police department. all of this is connected now, which really helps out a lot.
I guess my last question would be, what do y'all need from us to continue doing what you're doing and help make your all's lives maybe a little bit easier?
Oh,
Help. I mean, like I
That's a
mentioned,
great
Jared is our one rental inspector. We are training another one right now, but we've got a lot of development coming, and as soon as that's finished, it turns into rentals. We've got plenty coming, but we're having tough time managing what we have right now. Add in the rest of that, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I remember when we approved that one, I actually asked the question, what are we going to do about the inspections? Because we're bringing in a lot of it. So I don't see any other way other than eventually staff has to be increased.
That's
Or we
correct.
can phone you all.
And it has a fee attached, so thankfully we have a revenue source that'll grow as the workload grows.
Absolutely. We don't want this. We don't want to make a profit on this. We don't make a profit on this. But as we get more stuff, that might push us higher. Good way to mitigate it. Give me some help.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about the fire department's support of the program. They did a great job of highlighting some of the reasons, the smoke alarms in residents, but maintenance of utilities, improper installation, tampering with utilities, those are all high causes of injuries and fires, so them finding those things for us not only keep the residents safe, it keeps us safe. They spoke about finding a floor that was going to fall through. Imagine us having to go in there during a fire and encountering that condition. So we support the program wholeheartedly, and it's proven to make a difference.
Yes.
With that, I'll turn it over
Thank
to
you,
Lisa
Kevin.
to finish us off.
All right.
Feel free to check out that rental calendar. I'll let you color in some of the properties that we find, too.
Okay. Good evening.
Hey, Lisa.
Show me. Okay. Guess I'll put y'all to bed with a little code compliance here. I had it to mention later in the presentation, but I just can't say enough how the implementation of the rental program has integrated all of our departments. It's like we were instantly cross-trained on building, on permits, and they, in turn, were trained in more code enforcement issues. So it works, and animal control even. I mean, we all just sync together. And this works very well because rather than animal control having their issue with the property, and then we visit with them, and then building comes in, and then maybe even PD, we all sort of swoop in together and let's get it taken care of all at once. So it's a very efficient way of working. And we also have access to more information than we had before. We have property managers. We have out-of-country owners. We have people to hold responsible. So our working time frame is much shorter in solving problems. So back to our world of code compliance. I am Lisa Newsom. I'm the code enforcement manager for the city of Saginaw and also a code enforcement officer. This is Jeremy Robertson here. He is a code enforcement officer also, and more commonly known as our field officer now, because since I do elevated enforcement, I am in the office a great deal. Jeremy's been with the city of Saginaw for 11 years, 10 years in code enforcement. I've been here 14 years and 17 years in the profession. We are enabled to do our jobs by the Occupations Code, Chapter 14, 1952, that addresses code enforcement officers. We're also licensed by the state of Texas through the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. Per the Texas Local Government Code, code enforcement means the inspection of public or private premises for the purpose of identifying environmental hazards, including fire, health, nuisance, unsafe building conditions, and violations of any fire, health, or building regulation, statute, or ordinance, and to improve and rehabilitate those premises with regard to those hazards. So we are charged by the state of Texas to inspect, improve, and rehabilitate. The tools we use to fulfill our mission are the ordinances that are passed by the city of Saginaw. And within our code of ordinances, the chapters I have outlined here are where we do most of our business. The ones highlighted in red are where we spend most of the day. In addition to the Code of Ordinances, we have adopted codes, which you all also approve as a council. And these are all the international codes and the National Electrical Code, with the International Property Maintenance Code being where we spend most of our time. It's sort of an umbrella over all these other codes. We also must be knowledgeable of the legal aspects of our profession and familiar with current and past case law that affects our profession. And we learn about new case law through training, through Texas Municipal League updates, and through our city attorney, who sometimes alerts us to something that's going on. We frequently get the question, I don't want another notice, so please send me all the codes. Well, there they are. There's just a snapshot of the voluminous codes we have. You will never learn all the code. It's a lifelong pursuit just to be comfortably familiar with knowing where to look. So that's about as far as you'll get. It's just if you can get in the right direction. Also, it's hard for people to find things in the codes because we often put things into lay terms like blocking a sidewalk or parking in the grass. It's not written that way in the code. It's a completely different arrangement. It's, obstruction of the pedestrian way buried in a paragraph in the zoning ordinance. Ordinances, again, are our tools, and occasionally to the existing ordinances, they'll be updated or added to. For example, in 2012, the City Council passed the Residential Property Standards Ordinance. This was in response to citizen complaints for things that they considered junk or an eyesore, but they really didn't rise to the level of a nuisance. So we didn't really have a good way of dealing with it. So we did some research and proposed this ordinance, and it passed and made a big difference. I'm going to go over some of that in a few minutes. And then, of course, the rental registration and inspection program, huge difference in how we operate and how we can accomplish our mission. Adopted in 2018 and revised in 2020. And this was in response to citizen complaints, tenant complaints, and owner complaints. So across the board, we knew we had to address rental properties. And then more recently, the City Council approved the Hotel Motel Extended Stay Ordinance, which we haven't jumped into yet, but we have the tools there when we're ready. Just to highlight how when you all approve something in response to citizen concerns, before 2012, when the City Council then passed the Residential Property Standards Ordinance, these things you're seeing here were not a violation because these are items just stored out in public view. They weren't junk. They weren't creating a nuisance. It wasn't rotting. So we couldn't really address this concern, and we got complaints on a regular basis. Here's another example. And it was not uncommon to drive through town and see items stored all around the house before this ordinance was passed. Now, I spend a lot of my time doing elevated code enforcement, which is what happens after. This is what's beyond warnings and notices. We have to deal with issuing citations, preparing an affidavit for summons to court. That's to get someone either in front of the judge or in front of the prosecutor. We deal with a lot of referrals to other departments. Code enforcement is sort of a clearinghouse. We receive all complaints. So knowing the codes and knowing our city ordinances, we're able to direct citizens and get in contact with the correct departments. We also utilize state agencies like Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the Department of Family Services, the Texas Motor Vehicle Department. I've dealt with that lately with used car lots in residential areas. And TxDOT also. So we utilize our outside agencies as well. But this is kind of a soup to nuts operation with two people. We do everything from receiving the complaint to demolition of a house. and everything that goes in between. I'll let you read that on your own. Okay. Speaking of elevated enforcement and the rental program, a natural outcome of the rental program is elevated enforcement. It's helped us with properties that have had a history of code violations where we've just gotten no response from owners. Like I said, we have a reason to be there now. This is a photograph of an open case. We were on the property to conduct a nuisance abatement on the exterior. In 5 years, I've never heard from the owner or even the tenant. We've issued citations, so we were on site to pick up garbage outside and to get the grass mowed. While we were conducting this abatement, a rat ran across Jeremy's arm while we were outside. When we moved to the rear yard, this was what we saw through the sliding glass door. So I knew we were going to have a problem because the outside always speaks to the inside. But when we saw this, it was a much bigger problem than I anticipated. So we made contact with the tenant, let her know that we would be coming in because this was a rental property. Yes, sir. 3 people, and 1 was a minor. And the tenant is a family member, and we did write a warrant to go in the inside because they had canceled their required rental inspection on 8 occasions. So because of the rental ordinance, we are required to go in and make sure these properties are safe on the inside as well. So I wrote a warrant to enter. They let us in anyway. We didn't need to serve it, but we had it if we needed it. So this was our first visit on the interior, which they had actually picked up all of this. The entire house was filled with garbage up to about here, all the way through. So when we came in, much of this was removed. However, every surface had rat feces. The bathroom was completely inaccessible. That's temporary containers that they were utilizing because they did not go back to where the commode was. This is on our second trip. Now, your dates are not going to match. I just noticed this today, but this inspection was conducted on 10/4, not 9/4. But this was on our second visit after they were supposed to clean up. Our first visit, we weren't able to see in the bedrooms. We could just see the garbage around the mattresses, and none of the lights worked. So we were taking photographs in the dark, which is why you're not seeing that picture. But we could see the floor move because there were rodents in the garbage in the house. And yes. That was my first report to Child Protective Services. I made 2. The first one I made was from the exterior photo. But it wasn't enough information for them. But once we got in, I made my second report. And this is also the second visit. The top right picture is the bathroom once it's had the junk removed. The picture on the left is one of the bedrooms. There was a huge plumbing issue. And the picture on the bottom, that's the garage. I was told at a friend's house. So the building official, Larry Little, had the owner remove the tenant, and an environmental cleanup was begun. So we've got contractors coming and going. This is an open case, so I don't see any reason to embarrass anyone. I'm not mentioning the address. Not quite as exciting as that, but another part of elevated code enforcement is the substandard structure process. And you all remember this one. This is the last structure we demolished. We actually did 3 structures on one property. That was a first for us. That's a long and involved process. And there's just some highlight pictures of that. Kind of a similar situation, but this house was not occupied. And then we have the daily code enforcement. And this is what Jeremy mainly does. I do it as well, but not as often. But this is just the bread and butter stuff, the average code enforcement things, and all the activities associated with it. Here are some of our common code violations. And we have this little brochure that we have to hand out to people who are going in a newcomer packet. And
so is these in order of the most violation? At least if I start top left, is that our number one common violation? Or is it
no, they're not in order of frequency.
What is our top 3 violations?
Outside storage and overgrown weeds and grass.
And what?
Overgrown weeds and grass.
Overgrown?
Yeah. That's pretty typical of every city.
I sign lots of liens for grass. It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot less than we used to, because when I first started during the housing crisis, I would have 8 to 10 yards mowed a week. And we recovered all of that money. Yeah. But I noted on my copy that the inoperable motor vehicles, that comes from the International Property Maintenance Code. The vehicles on jack stands, that is from the Residential Property Standards Code that was passed in 2012. Parking on the grass and blocking the sidewalk are located in the zoning code. Outside storage, residential property standards, and garbage collection and the parameters around how to place your garbage out and when, that's in the solid waste area. Holiday lighting, we enforce that from the National Electrical Code. Tall weeds and grass is health and sanitation. Grass clippings in the street, that's through the stormwater ordinance. And watering restrictions is through the utilities
Holiday
ordinances.
lighting, I can tell my wife I'm not allowed to put the lights up.
Oh, no. you just have to take them down in 90 days. But anyway, we're, the things that we enforce, we serve at the behest of the council, and the things that we enforce, we have to state that it is, you're in violation of chapter this, section that, article that, and we do that. We also conduct focused code enforcement, and Jeremy just spent 12 months in 2020 doing the commercial corridor on North Saginaw, or on Saginaw Boulevard from north to south. And I believe he talked to you all about that, and it was it took a year, but it was very successful. Now it's time to do it again. But a focused code enforcement can happen in a certain, like a commercial corridor, in a certain zoning district, or you could even, someone could bring to our attention that, man, there's a lot of fences falling down in Saginaw. So you would focus on maybe just one type of violation to correct, a large problem. And this is some of the things that Jeremy was looking at when he did the focused code enforcement along Saginaw North. A lot of parking lot conditions, fire lane striping, signs, screening devices, that was a big one. Landscaping was a big issue, or lack thereof. Well, this is in the commercial corridor. We don't, our ordinances don't address landscaping in the residential district, only in the business district. But anyway, it was very successful, and I believe everybody's closed out except for one. Yes. So, yeah. And like I said, now it's time to start again. There's just a couple of quick photos. I appreciate your time. Any questions?
Question for Lisa? Yes, Mary.
Your first contact with someone who is violating a code, do the overwhelming majority of those people cooperate or not?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes. Most people we never even hear from. I do want to mention, too, that our means of communicating is expanded now because we have access to tenant information that we did not have before. So now we're emailing warnings. And even if I'm sending a notice of violation, which has to go certified mail, I've got an email to a tenant, to a property owner, and to a property manager. So they're all getting an email that day. So they don't have to wait for the mail to get there. Now I have to wait for that compliance time to pass and for the notice to have a chance to mail, to take any action. But it's out there. So that's helped a lot. Anything else?
Other questions? Lisa said one thing I want to reinforce. She said they're enforcing the council's will. This is what we've passed. So this is, I mean, y'all are the bad guys, but it's us. Blame us, please. Blame us. We appreciate y'all doing the dirty work, but it is from the council. So that's where it comes from. So ultimately it comes back to us. So if citizens are mad, they should come to us. Not y'all. I'm sure y'all get the brunt of it because y'all see people.
Well,
sorry, but
I appreciate that, but I do kind of think as a team effort as well. You know, this is our job, and it's your job to listen to the citizens. So it is also the citizens' ordinances because they bring these concerns to you, and you address them, and then you give us the tools.
Well, and we want to hear from y'all too. If y'all hear stuff from citizens that need to change or some, please let us know. We're all ears for updating. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, y'all. All right, so item 14, executive session is thankfully not required, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I make a motion, we adjourn.
All those in favor? At 8:11, we're out of here. Thanks, everybody.